For the first time in history, a woman has become a candidate for the office of president of one of the major political parties. And I am pleased to have her as my guest on this program today. She is United States Senator Margaret Chase Smith, a Republican from the state of Maine. Senator Smith is the only woman to serve in both the United States Senate and the House of Representatives. Actually, she has served for 24 years. She was first elected to the House of Representatives in 1940 and is now in her third term as United States Senator. Mrs. Smith is now a top-ranking Republican on the United States Senate Space Committee, and she also holds a ranking position on both the Senate Armed Services Committee and the important Senate Appropriations Committee. Senator Smith, I'm very grateful to you for participating in this program, and I'm sure that the good people of Western New York are very much interested in what you have to say. Your name is well known to people throughout the country, and your recent announcement as a candidate for president, of course, gives added glamour and importance to your activities. Now, Senator, when you announced you would be a candidate for the presidential nomination of the Republican Party, you listed a number of reasons why you shouldn't be a candidate. Now let me ask you on the other side of the coin, what were your reasons for deciding you should be a candidate?
Well, that's good, putting it in the positive. For a year, I have been having letters from over the country asking me to think seriously about becoming a candidate for the presidency. I was highly complimented and not very serious about it. But when the letters looked like they were sincere, I did give it some thought. I looked over my own calendar, but I found that, of course, I don't have any time, I don't have any money, and I don't have any organization. But I do have what I consider one of the fine records in Congress. I seem conceited, but I'm not. I'm very proud of my record. And I think that 23 years of service to the people and legislatively are worthy of consideration, and I'd like to be president.
Thank you. Well, now, perhaps at this point, in view of your recent announcement, may I ask what kind of a reception has your announcement received? What are people saying and writing to you now?
Well, I'm getting a very large amount of mail. I said the other day if I could get half as many votes in New Hampshire as I'm getting mail in some of these states, I would be in. My mail is heavy. It's from every state in the Union and has been since the 1st of November. It is a very warm, not emotional, but a very stable, solid mail, appealing to me to be serious in this, giving me credit for a record, speaking largely about my ability to follow through on anything that I have done. No, I'm very, very impressed with my mail, and it's divided between men and women.
Yes, you're heartened by the response you've received so far. Now, have you noticed any difference between the reaction from men as compared with the reactions of women?
No, I haven't. My mail, I would say, we haven't had time to analyze it, and we haven't had time to count it, and I haven't had time to read a lot of it. But I would say from glancing through that it was pretty well evenly divided, and pretty much the same, with little distinction between the two sexes.
Well, now, of course, we're moving toward the time of the national conventions. And, of course, will be, in the meantime, a number of primaries. What are your plans for entering primary elections around the country before the National Convention? Do you mind giving us some idea?
No, indeed. I'm in the New Hampshire primary, and I expect to spend this coming week in New Hampshire, meeting as many people as I can and shaking a few hands and letting them see me. I have been entered in the Illinois primary by some interested young men legislators out there. I thought I would be automatically entered in Oregon, but the Secretary of State has stated publicly that he decides who shall go onto that ballot.
Is that right?
It's a question. There's a story this past 2 or 3 days that some people in Ohio have started some delegates running. California is calling me, and there are several groups out there that want to organize. But I want to get into the New Hampshire primary, and I want to get through that before I go take the next step.
Now, there is a possibility that your name will be entered into a number of primaries that have not been decided up to now.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in your opinion, Senator, what will be the most important issues of the presidential election this year, generally speaking?
I don't know which will be most important, but I think foreign policy will be pretty basic with Laos and Cuba and Panama and Vietnam and now Cyprus and all the rest of the trouble spots in the world. I would presume that the heavy spending would be another issue. I would think those two would be the paramount ones.
Yes, our economic position and spending and the foreign policy and the foreign program and what's happening in the world. Because after all is said and done, we do take credit and we are recognized as the leader of the free world, and when we're not really doing that, we have an issue.
And I hope we get back to regaining the leadership that we have held for so many years.
Well, now getting back to the political picture for a second, in the past, Senator, you, I believe, have been nominated as a candidate for vice president.
I've never been nominated. My name was talked about a good deal out in the 1952. Claire Luce, the former congressman with whom we served, you may remember, was going to nominate me. But that was the time that General Eisenhower decided that it should be limited to one candidate, the one vice presidential candidate.
Well, I recall that your name was in the picture as a vice presidential candidate. Well, let me ask you at this point, would you accept the nomination for vice president this year?
Well, Congressman, I have to say to you, as I've said to everybody else, that I am a candidate for president, and I'm not going to comment beyond that.
Well, that's the way most of them talk, I suppose. Well, now, getting back to the situation here in Congress and the problems confronting us, and I mentioned earlier that you're an important member of the Appropriations Committee of the Senate, as well as on the Armed Services Committee and also Space. Now, the President has submitted a 1965 budget to us, which he says will reduce federal spending next year. Now, as a member of the Appropriations Committee, do you think that this will be achieved by the new budget?
Well, I haven't had time to study it. We're only commencing our posture hearings and we're having combined hearings, appropriations.
I understand.
But we've got to also go along with the times and realize that our national security is going to depend on missiles or rocket ships or whatever they call them.
Yeah. Now, as a ranking Republican on the Senate Space Committee, do you think that we should have a woman in our space flight program, that is a woman astronaut, like the Russians do?
Well, Congressman, you know, I think of women as people, and I think if the women have the qualifications to go into space and the same qualifications that the men have, I can see no reason why they should not be chosen.
No, I don't either, and probably we will have sooner or later. One last quick question. You have compiled an amazing record of attendance. As I understand it, you attended 1,600 roll calls consecutively in the last 9 years. Have you ever missed anybody? I mean, have you ever come close to missing them, and have they caused any particular interesting point?
They certainly have. I well remember the day that I was trying to get to Maine for the Republican State Convention to make a speech to the young Republicans. And that was the very day that they decided on the Senate to have 8 roll call votes. And I got into my car at 9 o'clock, drove through to Bangor, Maine, which is almost 800 miles, got in the next forenoon ready for the speech, and one of the officials asked if he could have 2 minutes to make an announcement, and he took 25 minutes, and I never made the speech.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. I see our time is about up. Friends, you have been listening to the United States Senator Margaret Chase Smith, a Republican from the state of Maine. This is your Congressman, Harold C. Ostertag, closing another report from Washington. And I want to remind you in closing that this is your government.